I am Abby Rose. I'm co-founder of Viticycle. We make apps that support observation as a key tool for understanding what works on a specific farm or vineyard. Many of you may already use or be familiar with our app Sector Mentor, which is specifically for vineyards. And Sector Mentor is all about making it easy to predict yields, monitor ripeness, understand soil health and biodiversity, as well as tracking vineyard activities block by block. And most recently, we introduced the Regen dashboard in partnership with Nicole Masters. And that allows you to benchmark and track your regenerative viticulture journey using the 10 regen indicators, as well as get tips and tricks from Nicole on how to improve them. And if you haven't read Nicole's book, For the Love of Soil, I highly recommend it. It's a brilliant book. So at Viticycle in general, we're committed to building ecology, profitability, and beauty on farms around the world. And we're always exposed to amazing stuff happening, on the ground, people doing the work, and not enough people get to hear about it. So, this series is really about sharing the real implementation details of what it takes to have a regenerative approach, and highlighting the work of people like Mireia and others as brilliant resources if you want to take a more regenerative approach. So just if you do have any questions as we go, if you could ask them in the Q&A, there's a little Q&A on Zoom. Please do type it in there, and then others can upvote them as well. And we will have time for Q&A at the end. And yeah, it's such a pleasure to be talking to you, Mireia Domènech López, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Enterprise Vineyards. I was in Sonoma late last year, and met with Mireia, and I was just absolutely wowed and fascinated by all the information and data that Mireia uses to inform all of your work and practice and what's happening at Enterprise Vineyards. And I've also kind of, from the beginning, been very impressed with Enterprise and just that you're an organic first vineyard management company. I hadn't really come across that before that much. So it's been cool to learn more, and I'm excited to share more today. So yeah, to start, maybe you could share a bit about your current role and then your background.
Thank you, Abby. So I'm the Chief Operation Officer in Enterprise Vineyards. I manage the day-to-day operations of the company. Enterprise Vineyards was born in 1973, I believe. 73, 79. It's like, but 73, created by Phil Coturri. And the whole philosophy behind it is the organic viticulture. He has never approached viticulture another way. So the organics is a value that's very engraved in everyone that works here. And as that's the standard, we can move forward and kind of learn more about more techniques and move towards a regenerative approach.
Mm-hmm.
That's the company. And then about me, I grew up in Catalonia in Spain, was an agronomist there for a little bit. And then I came to the US because of my studies in viticulture and enology. And I did a lot of data. I worked in for 5 years in UC Davis, working with data and research in vineyard physiology, like remote sensing and grapevine genetics. But I was so into the data and I missed the boots on the ground that I was really seeking that connection again with the field. And a friend connected me with Phil because we had similar philosophies. And that's how I started in Enterprise Vineyards.
Amazing. Yeah, and interesting that you you got so into the data that I understand that it like becomes abstract. The practice becomes
Mhm.
abstract, and you just need to like get back to the soil
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time doing evapotranspiration models. So like how much water does the plant, what is the plant transpirating through satellites and infrared? And I would do it from my computer. So it became like this dystopian reality where I was working with vines without seeing vines.
Yeah.
It's like I can't do this. So now I could bring that aspect of monitoring
hmm
and then merge it with the intuition that enterprise has and the intuition of the people that has been working here for 40 years to just kind of merge both worlds.
Yeah, brilliant. And actually, when we spoke a little while ago, one of the things that really intrigued me was when you were talking, when you were kind of thinking about challenges, because of course you're working across many different sites, and each site has its own context. And you gave me an example of a challenge with like red spots on the leaves,
Hmm.
and yeah, maybe you can share a bit about that and how like you really, when you approach challenges now, you have to start with the widest part of the context before getting too focused.
Yes, 100%, because it's like it's so easy to get caught in the details of what you do. Something I learned from the people that has spent so much time in the vineyards is like, okay, first look at your surroundings, like look at what's the context of everything that we are doing. You see a red leaf, right? Um, it can be many reasons. It can be nutritional, it can be mechanical damage, it can be physical damage for something that's like environmental, can be a virus. So when I first started, for example, you're like, okay, I know that this could be this virus and this disease and this, and then you start to calm down, look at each side and realize like, oh, maybe I'm in a windy spot. Maybe the wind is like moving the shoot back and forth. Let me see if there's like any damage further down. And then you find the damage that created this vascular base obstruction that
hmm
resulted in the red leaf instead of like going 1,000 miles per hour trying to find out a very specific cause, like things when you are dealing with so many properties, you need to take a step back and look at the whole picture of where are where are where are um, the potential risks and what's that site telling you. And
hmm
we work in Carneros, for example. We very recently started just a small vineyard in Carneros from a client. It's like a very dark soil that will need completely different um, treatments than our Moon Mountain volcanic soils that are very shallow, or the red clay or the volcanic ash that's white. So we can't hyper focus on something, but going from the big picture to each
hmm
individual.
Yeah, and I think exactly, kind of what you said, bringing the intuition and the data together in a way, some of that big context stuff, you can't know it in the data necessarily. It's like there has to, yeah, what is Enterprise's approach in terms of like bringing that boots on the ground information together with data? Like, how does that work for you? Because I guess you're kind of the overseer of all of that in a way.
Yeah. The thing is, data without context, it's very difficult to use. So if you don't have context on, first of all, what's going to be the use of that data? And how do I interpret that data with what I know, right? We use the data in different ways to contextualize it. One is in terms of timeline. Like, thankfully, Phil prioritized data a long time ago. So he had been having a team collecting data every year. So that helped us compare where we are standing this year compared to other years. And that helps a lot in terms of decision making, like, oh, but break was earlier than the average, then we can start, I don't know, the period sampling earlier or things like that. Um, but apart from this, it's really good to get the perspective on the site so you understand the data. For example, we are looking at soil moisture probes and the rate of water infiltration and getting the perspective of someone that has been in a site for so long and tells you, oh, that probe is situated in a in like a wet area because when they developed the vineyard, they they brought all the dirt there. Or I don't know, you start seeing that there's some problems with shatter and then realize that, oh, there was an oak tree here before. And then that's just the spot that you're talking about. Or there's a boulder or very big rock underneath. So the roots are bound and they can't access to water. So these things and having that perspective, bringing the data to them so they can like a digested part of the data to them, it really helps getting these conversations flowing and understand how can we act on this data based on all of these things that they've collected over 40 years of seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally. Maybe we could, obviously, we keep talking about data and given a few examples, but maybe we could talk a little bit about, obviously, you're collecting lots of data points, but, what are some of the metrics that have been really key for you to, I guess, across many different sites now? Are there some metrics that actually you use consistently across many sites to make some key decisions each year about how to act?
So the first one that's like across all year is the phenological data. So we measure bud break, bloom, berries, and harvest. And those dates really help us understand how long did it take that year to ripen, um, where are we standing compared with another year. Another metric we use a lot is the pruning weights because we want to see like how much biomass has this plant have to produce in order to get us to this season we are at, and we compare it to previous years. And that we use for two reasons. One, to understand like, okay, the bigger of the plant this year, the water needs that it's probably gonna have, if we're gonna have crop balance or not. And the other part is if we start seeing a lower pruning weight over time, we can see the trends and realize that maybe the plant is either reaching a point where it needs something, or maybe it's getting old, or try to figure out what's the issue there. Another um, two more technological tools we use is the soil moisture and temperature probes. We like to monitor the soil temperature, especially at the beginning of the year, to kind of estimate when things are starting to wake up. We are in an area where thankfully we don't have much late frost, but we do have frost. So that we try to push pruning so we don't have growth when we are still in a risk time. And what happens is that if we are starting to see the soils warm up, we know we have to act on the pruning before the plant wakes up, and we are going to damage the buds when we tie or whatever. But it's like this extra tool that we use to see where we are at in terms of the vineyard. And on the same lines is the weather stations. We have weather stations almost in every vineyard, and we use them constantly for humidity, temperature in terms of like pest pressure, especially powdery mildew, and um, also monitor like, okay, for example, this year in the pruning decisions, Do I have to prune early or late?
Mhm.
Or should I leave a long pruned cane? For that, we look at previous year's data and see when did these heat spikes or freezing events happen, so we can have everything kind of situated and be like, okay, this is risky or this is not.
Mm. Interesting. And I think also it's you're kind of in a somewhat unique position where obviously you have all of this past data and being organic first, I guess, for so long. Um, it's interesting to me that these are kind of the key metrics you've landed on in, and maybe they're exactly the same for conventional, maybe not. But it's just, yeah, interesting that those are the things that really make the difference as you're making decisions across so many different contexts. Um, it's really cool to hear. And one of the things we discussed was I know um, you, as you transition to a more regenerative approach in some areas, um, you've kind of been exploring, and I don't think you've answered yet, but what are the metrics that will support you in understanding what's working well or not working so well as you take on a regenerative approach? I don't know if you had any comments on that.
Definitely. And I think on the regenerative part, we're constantly learning right now. Like, um, it's kind of a trial and error. And I think my biggest challenge is um, getting the team to understand that it's not an immediate change. You're not gonna be able to measure something and be like, oh, last year I don't know, my microbial activity was this, and now just after 1 year of crimping and this new cover crop has improved 40%. That's not gonna happen. And even the contrary, sometimes the soil and the vines need adjusting. So what's happening is that it looks like even worse in a sense, but it's because they are the ecosystem is trying to find its balance again. And instead of being fed artificial, um, like I don't know, we do a lot of calcium phosphate, which is organic, but maybe it can sustain itself without us having to intervene. And I think metrics, we for now, I think it's more visual what we're doing, and that's why tools like Sector Mentor would like the soil tool would definitely help. And it's because measuring, for example, we can measure the organic matter, but what's the effect of crimping 1 year, 2 years, 3 years over time? We don't know, grazing, like what's the benefit for the soil of grazing versus the compaction, maybe? Or what's the ideal rotation time or the ideal amount or density of sheep? All of these things we are kind of observing right now, and we try it 1 year, then the next year we adapt and try to document everything. That's super important. Like, okay, this is what we did, and then the following year this is what we see, like cover crop growth. It's a really good one for us, like seeing how the cover crops are doing in comparison to plots that are close by but haven't had the same treatment. Um, a lot of worm activity in the soil. We try to dig and see, like, okay, how are we doing on that? But apart from the organic matter, we don't have anything tangible. We do periodic sampling for nutrition every year, every block, so we can kind of see like reduced tilling, um, and like maintaining covers for longer, how that's affecting. But right now, we don't have like a magic metric that.
Yeah, and maybe there isn't a magic metric, but yeah, it'll be interesting as it does evolve because you have an overview of so many sites. It'd be really interesting to see what you've land on going forward as well. Um, so maybe we could just talk a little bit about when you do take on a new site, um, you know, what are the first things that you're focusing on? And if it is conventional, like how do you shift the vineyard in that organic transition or regenerative transition? Um, yeah, maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's always tricky when you go to a vineyard that has been farmed conventionally, especially when all your workers are so used to farm organically. One of the biggest things that shocks kind of our guys is like the soil health. It's the first one that it's like we never have intervine clearance completely. Like you don't see like that strip or and I would say that's like the biggest shock for them. When we arrive, we always do a site evaluation and we look at the health of the vines, like very general, like the health, the perspective of like, can they make it? Is it, how do we think it has been farmed? Looking at the pruning, looking at the structure of the plant. And then from there, we create a plan with all our farming practices. And usually what takes more time is to understand like it's gonna take 3, 5, 7 years to see a change. So even if we plant cover crops, sometimes it has been so
Mm.
um it has been sprayed or something, and then it's like nothing grows for 3 years. Like it's like it grows a little bit and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. But I think the message is that you can always turn a vineyard around any place, like as long as it will give you back what you give it. So if you are just spending time building the soil, if the vines have been pruned and it's very compromised, you can always like come back and be like, okay, can we get fresh growth and rebuild? So I think that would be my takeaway with new properties. Like you can always rebuild and
Mm.
make the most out of them. And the the ecosystem will balance itself, but it will take time. And that's something we
Yeah.
also need to educate our clients on. Like we're not gonna come and it's gonna look great like your neighbor's vineyard that has been looking like full of life, you know. We
Hmm.
find a lot of people that buys a property and they have the same philosophy we do, but their vineyards don't look like that for a little bit, and then
Yeah.
they start building up.
Takes time. And also, one of the things you mentioned was about like the importance of neighbors and the local community. And like you said, you had this new site in Carneros, and
Mhm.
so totally different soil type. And yeah, I was intrigued to hear that as a vineyard management company, you spend some time engaging in that way. Maybe can you
Yeah,
share
I
more?
think that's very important because I think wineries or estates tend to do that more. In vineyard management, sometimes it gets behind in that regard, where it's a super important tool to get vineyard management involved with the community because you see so many sites, so you can help a lot of people that's close by to you and they can help you. So the more network you have and the more you are transparent in what like in the problems you're having and the solutions you're finding, you will see that people is more transparent about it as well. And then you can kind of both nourish your
Hmm.
your knowledge and I think that's key for success in especially in vineyard management if you're trying to do uh, if you are really trying to get to a point where your vineyard is not ABC, but you're adapting to the place, to the you're you are listening to the vineyard, you need to see what other people are seeing.
Hmm.
And that's really key. Same with a team, like having a team of people that is very passionate about this, and they all have different aptitudes and things that they are passionate about really, really helps building up these kind of um, organizations that are self-sustainable.
Hmm. So would you say it's almost because in a way, in my experience, sometimes working with a vineyard management company, I haven't personally worked, but I've seen it. It's a bit of a kind of just following a recipe to a certain extent and delivering a service and kind of attending the site, doing the work and leaving. So how do you, or is it a values thing? And that's why people feel empowered to be able to go and talk to the neighbors or, because that takes time. And maybe it's kind of, yeah, you might feel not confident to take that time.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a enterprise core value. I think everyone that works for us has the same philosophy or alignment. And that's very important. And you can see that when someone joins that maybe they don't care that much about the environment, they don't last because it's like they don't get like all these workarounds we have to do in order to like if you can do it way easier, but we're not doing it easy. We're trying to do it so it's sustainable. It's like a long-term resilience instead of like convenience right now.
Hmm.
So everyone in the team is very much aligned on that. And from there, I think empowering the team to be able to speak about what they like and what they are passionate about. For example, we have Nelly in our team who's super passionate about insects. So she she does all things insects. She takes care of the IPM. She takes care of the um, pollinator mixes. So she knows like, okay, this is that in that area I want to put this, in this area I want to put that, the insectaries around the vineyards. And that helps us create this whole system. Then you have Jesse, for example, who grew up in the vineyards, and he grew up in the Moon Mountain, like Mayacamas Mountain, which is where most of our vineyards and most difficult vineyards are because it's volcanic soil. And he knows all the medicinal plants that are in there and all the little veins of water that are going underneath like each vineyard. And it's crazy because we would never know, but just having him walk there and explaining certain things like that really brings a new perspective. So that's like I think key for success, having people that's passionate. And when you are passionate, you also want to talk to other people about what you're passionate about. So then
Hmm.
if we go to events and someone is talking about, I don't know, cover crop mixes, Nelly will want to talk to them, or I'm very passionate about plant morphology. And so I'm always trying to see what's your strategy with these and what's your, so just empowering people and also
Hmm.
empowering people that have been field workers and
Hmm.
have seen a lot, but sometimes they are not given the voice to
Hmm.
express all this knowledge that they have has been incredible for us because our workers are more and more going to classes that, not classes or discussion groups, because NAP and Sonoma are creating more spaces and more like Spanish speaking events. So we can bring them there. And then now they are creating their own networks. And that's also being great for that.
Mm.
So,
Really cool.
yeah.
So yeah, it feels like there's kind of constant information flow
Mhm.
um, throughout the whole team, and that's vital.
It is vital. the one person cannot do it all, especially in a vineyard management company, and or control it all. So you have to have a lot of trust in everyone in your team. And in order to have trust, I think it's important that they like what they do.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so maybe we could dig into some of the details around. I was quite interested in kind of what have been the most helpful or successful tools for implementing a regenerative approach. So I don't know, like this type of drill or this type of crimper, like what's really worked well for you to be able to do that. But also, I guess, different techniques that have worked really well or that you're trying, and yeah, anything along those lines.
I think two things that are for me uh, or I'm constantly amazed by are one is the crimper,
Hmm.
which everyone talks about the crimper, I know, but like it's great, especially in our case that we work in volcanic soils because our equipment has a lot of wear and tear. So the
Hmm.
simplest the equipment, the better.
Hmm.
So it creates way less problems in terms of mechanical and logistics. And on top of that, it's helping those volcanic soils that have basically rock generate organic matter. So like, and also the rock reflects a lot of heat. So like having that cover really helps. So for us and the kind of soils we are at, that has been great. Like just reducing the the heat emitted by the soil to the clusters, um, have more organic matter just so the walking in the vineyard for our workers is less damaging, you
Well,
know.
yeah.
Um, and on the same line, the cedar, we usually spread the seed of the cover crops, but we found out that if we crimp, just topping the soil is not enough with that and the rains. So we definitely need the seed drill to
Hmm.
seed. And the other thing, um, I don't know if regenerative, I guess it's like more biodiversity in general. Um, this year we had a site that was had a very big vertebrate pest problem, and utilizing barn owls and
Mm.
birds in the vineyard has been awesome. So it's like just being very proactive on creating habitats for them to like have a couple that is actually living there. It has been great. And also it's a forever learning experience because it's the behavior of the animal. But I think that has been key for us to have this integration of like other species and our management of the soil.
Hmm. Yeah, so cool and so interesting that now that you're crimping, you have to use a drill. And we don't need to get into too many drill specifics, and I actually don't know all the details, but just in case it's something that you do have some thoughts on, is there like a specific type of drill that you found has really worked well, or you're not into that?
We just have one kind, um
Hmm.
like just the cedar with like the typical 6 row.
Okay, yeah.
But we probably will be experimenting with more
Okay.
because it's getting more um we are sitting more and more on top of cream throws. So we
Yeah.
will have to get more equipment and or maybe we find another way that's not using a drill that works well. I mean, we also experimented with like having the disc, but like just at barely 2 inches, like
Yep.
almost nothing. And that also worked really well. But what disturbs more the soil, right? So it's like
Yeah.
we are trying to see what works without destroying all this work we've put in
Yeah.
generating this cover. Um, so I think it's a forever learning. The ranch managers are definitely giving us a lot of ideas based on what they are seeing out there and based on the regrowth of the cover crop with each technique. So
Mm-hmm.
right now we are in a documenting phase where we are looking and also looking if it's because of the crimper, because if it has been grazed and maybe after grazing it has been more difficult to like regain that cover crop. So we
Totally.
are kind of learning stages in terms of
Yeah.
in terms of
Perfect.
all this reseeding after just leaving these covers because the covers can get pretty thick.
Totally.
And places where we have a lot of vigor, for example, we plant Phacelia that's very like fibrous. So we're also adapting the cover crops to the side and to the crimping. So each site is different at that point because each species of cover crop is different. But we are we are
Mm.
learning.
Amazing amount of decisions, and you can see why you have to use the on the ground information and the data to help like
Mhm.
hone the specificity of each of these practices. And maybe we could just dig into cover crops because obviously it's such a massive topic, particularly when people are thinking more regeneratively. And I guess maybe two things really. One is just like, um, you know, how do you decide what to plant where, or do you have any favorite mixes, or is it actually very much tailored to the site? And at what level, just the block or sub block? And then also the other thing I would say is like from your experience, a lot of people will move to cover crops as kind of the first step as they take a regenerative approach. And what do you think about that? Have you seen that to be successful generally, or would you actually potentially focus on other things first?
I would say cover crop is kind of one of the first.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Cover crop and also not overdo watering, like not overdo watering or not overuse of resources. Like I would say
Yes.
first, not my first thing in order to move towards that direction would be remove your ABC approach.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can plan, but you will need to pivot every year. And so that's the first thing that like, okay, I cannot expect to water every 8 days with this amount of water. I can't expect to put sulfur every 7 days, that many pounds, because maybe you don't need it. And then maybe you're like affecting, I don't know, predatory mites that are great for for the population that you're trying to control or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my first one. And then if you are talking about inputs that would actually build something new, I would say cover crops are a great resource. In our case, we do block by block,
Mm-hmm.
um, just because our blocks are very different. We can have the same vineyard, and we have one property that's like one side of the property is white soil, and the other side of the property is black. And in between is like red and basalt. And so, of course, we cannot say, oh, in this property, we're going to put this cover crop mix because it needs different stuff. And then we have cover crop mixes that may vary, but have kind of the same like legume, oat, the same kind
Mm-hmm.
of peas, the same mixes. And then we have like a green manure mix. Uh, One that we call pot mix that has more oats and more grains. We have the bee friendly mix in areas where we want. Then there is the sheep mix, where it's like the mix where the sheep are gonna. So based on what we want, and then maybe we add on top of the mix more of one kind, like maybe we add more daikon radish because we are trying to like
Mm-hmm.
create that soil and infiltration and taproot,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe we want more brassicas because we are trying to generate this pumping of nutrients. And for that, we just look at what the site needs. It's very important to look for us at the petioles to see where
Mm-hmm.
we try nutritionally and what would benefit. And then also look at the water holding capacity of the site, the soil texture. As I said, like we have places that maybe hold a lot of water and are very vigorous. So we put something that's gonna devigorate like the facility.
Right. Yeah, interesting. And what the pot mix, is that like, why
Yeah.
is it called that?
I don't know why is it called that. I can
Oh.
research why. I don't know where it came from. It's all capitals, and the thing is that Enterprise has been doing cover crop for so long that these mixes have been passed. And you would think like, okay, well, let's reevaluate them. But when you reevaluate them, they have kind of everything you need for the area
Mm-hmm.
because they were created by Phil or the local seed supplier that has different clients that have different needs. And yeah, but it's basically like peas, oats, legumes, like we have fava beans, um, peas, radishes, oats, and
And so just in terms of the cover crops, so obviously with the crimping, I'm assuming that in general, is that so no till in the alleys, and then and then like tilling under the vine?
so this is also a forever battle.
Yep.
Um, we have different strategies. One would be trying to fill the space with something else. We
Mm-hmm.
use clover a lot, like we seed clover under the vine so it can repress other species that we really would have to take care of.
Yep.
Um, the second approach is when we have very sensitive vines, especially young vines, we do a lot of shoveling by hand. Like we shovel around each vine, which is labor and cost, but you don't have to do it every year. We've seen like you do it and it can last 1 to 2 years. Like the effects of that, if a well done root removal will really help.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we do is mainly weed eaters, like manual weed eating in between the vines. That's like our general, but we are trying to not get too close to the trunk, so that's why we have to do these shovel passes and
Manual as in like by hand?
Mhm.
Oh,
We have
wow.
like a weed eater, like a your backyard weed eater, and each crew has 5 to 6 weed eater people, and they
Wow.
do in between vines for that. And a lot
Wow.
of it is because we don't want weeds, like we still want the cover,
Mm-hmm.
like it's mowed, but we don't want to destroy the cover crop, so we don't want to enter a tractor so early.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is like, okay, we're having someone by hand walk in, the cover crop keeps developing, because also it's like a very, I would say, very big time and a very time-consuming decision. When are we gonna lay down the cover crop or mow? So
Mm-hmm.
we look a lot at the rhizomes in the like we look a lot at the nodules,
All right.
the 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 roots. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, maybe it's not ready, but they are getting tall enough where and we are starting to get bud break or like growth and we need to take care of this. So we need to do that part first and then we go.
Got it. Wow.
Mm.
Yeah, lots of, and interesting that you look at the legume nodules to determine has this cover crop kind of done its work?
Yeah,
Uh,
we usually look for that pinkish color.
mhm,
So yeah, we all the ranch managers do that. We do that, and it's block by block.
right. And if you find the pinkish color, then that says to you, like, okay, these legumes are in full flow, they're fixing nitrogen, this has done its work or is doing its work, we can terminate
Mhm.
it soon or cut it down soon.
We try we try to let it go as much as we
Yeah.
can. That's like the strategy. But even if I don't know, for example, right now, this past year was a big mildew year because it was wet. So right now we have to do pre-emerging spray. What happens is that if you're bringing a sprayer, our cover crops are getting all.
Yeah, flattened.
So we are trying to minimize that spray to just the necessary places, and then looking at the cover crops and be like, okay, has this had time to do anything?
Hmm.
Like, is still we look at the radishes, like the growth, to see like how much info, like how deep they got. It's just a visual, but it helps us with those decisions.
Absolutely. And yeah, I guess that they're very, those are some of the regen indicators. So definitely things that we're used to. But I guess even though I'm a big proponent of all that, I'm always um, heartened, I guess, to hear that, people who long before the regen indicators, you were already, looking at these are things that are, are proven to be incredibly valuable
Mhm.
in your decision-making process. And it's the best indicator that you've seen. That's
Yeah, and
cool.
they've done it like Phil. I don't know when he started, but it's one of the first things he does. He goes and he pulls the cover crop to see how the roots are looking. And same with the ranch managers before telling us, oh, I think we should do this. They always like check it, and they are people that are 60 or 70 and they've been doing it for 40 years. And
It works. Amazing. Okay, so I'm conscious. I just want to check if, yeah, I think I've covered. One of the things I also wanted to ask about is, well, actually, one thing that's just come into my head is like we've talked about these so many different decisions that are being made. And I just like I know when I visited you, it was harvest time, so you did have big whiteboards of like all the different places, different times, who's going where. But from your operations manager head, it's like, how do you bring all this data together? Is it like, do you have a meeting about each site each week, or is it that the ranch manager like holds all the information and you just feed them extra things? I mean, maybe you said that was one way earlier. Yeah, how does it work to kind of,
so we have a viticulture team that would be like more the data technical team that they go and record certain stuff. So like there's these parameters that every year get recorded. They are the ones in charge to do that because it's an important amount of time. So our
yeah.
people that are in charge of operations can't really do it.
Yeah.
Um, and they put it in a system. In our
Hmm.
case right now, it's Ag Code, well, has been for many years, where then we generate reports that we can share with the ranch managers once everything has been digested. That's one side of the data collection. Then for the operations itself, we're gonna have like a technical team. It would be like Phil, Jesse, different people that bring different things to the table. And then we create schedules or plans. So a farm plan of this property, these were the issues last year, or this is what we are seeing, this is what we need to address, what's the best way. And then we kind of create a plan for each property. And then I meet with the ranch managers and convey that plan and discuss with them like, is this feasible? Is it not? What can we do? And that would be kind of the
Hmm.
general plan for the year. And then for pivoting, having a lot of people with eyes in the vineyard constantly. It's the way. It's like training everyone to look for different potential issues or triggers that will trigger a work
Yeah,
order or something, that would be.
got it. Amazing. So just kind of bring this all together. I was thinking, going forward, and well, now you have your role as the Chief Operations Officer, but what are you excited about over the next couple of years in terms of maybe like furthering the regenerative approach? Um, yeah, are you hearing certain, like you're starting to hear requests from customers, how, as regenerative becomes more like known?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm interested. What do you see going forward?
I think a lot of the clients we have already hire us with this in mind. I think right now we are in a position where the wine industry in California is kind of contracting. So it's tough because um, what we are trying to do is educate our clients on it doesn't have to cost you more money to do it this way. It just needs to be done smartly
Mm-hmm.
and um, have constant eyes. So maybe instead of doing two passes, you can reduce it to one, but still not go to the convenience that it's not gonna help you long term, right? So I think right now we are in this position, but I'm very positive that all the people that's succeeding is people that has this philosophy in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And as we move forward, this is gonna start becoming a standard. Like I think, and maybe we don't call it anything, but it's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
a standard, maybe even um, in terms of compliance, more and more we are dealing with the erosion control plans and erosion issues, especially in mountainside. So people are gonna get more and more limited about tilling and what they are putting out there in terms of pesticides. And so I don't think, I think if something happens, it's gonna move towards the organic and regenerative approach. Nothing is gonna go back to the
Mm-hmm.
convenience of the conventional farming.
Great. Good news.
I think so.
Very much hope you're right. And I mean, yeah, I agree. And that's what I'm hearing as well from different people, is that the people who are practicing organic, regenerative, um, are the people who are still able to, for example, sell their grapes. Like it's still something that's in demand, whereas everyone else really struggled a lot more. So it feels, yeah.
And people is more health aware, I think. Um, I mean, for example, I'm pregnant right now, so I wouldn't like
Oh,
to walk.
congratulations.
I wouldn't like to walk a vineyard that has been sprayed with a
No.
pesticide, right? And most of our clients have a house in the middle of the vineyard. So I'm like, you don't want to leave, like, you don't want to live next to, or also next to something that has no life, has no butterflies, no bees, no birds. Like it's completely deserted except for the grapes that you're growing. You're trying to create life around you, right?
Hmm.
So I think people are more and more moving towards that direction and understanding that it's not great to be in contact with these products. And also, it's not great for their vineyard to just be a monoculture because we are a monoculture, but the months where you are not producing, which would be November to April, you should be as diverse as you can.
Hmm.
It's,
Totally. Yeah. Um, that just a final quick question for me is that we had Jordan Lomberg on here, and he was talking. I mean, he's got really into like SEP testing, and then also giving like foliars, organic foliars to the vines, even in the dormant period, and really like um, thinking of that as a way of feeding the soil. And I just thought, I was wondering what your opinion on that was, or if you had any experience. I guess, as you said, the cover crops are kind of doing that in some ways in the dormant period of the vines. But yeah, any
yeah,
thoughts?
100%. 100% agree with him because it's something we're doing more and more, the foliar sprays as well. Because sometimes it's not enough with like sometimes you have a cover crop or some kind of competition. For example, calcium, magnesium, and potassium compete, right? So it's like we have soils with a lot of potassium. Even if you have calcium and magnesium available, this cation exchange capacity is not, it's already full.
Hmm.
So you need the foliars. And we have found that that's an amazing resource for us. Um, and it ties with the whole organic regenerative, where our toolbox is not limited, but like it's a different kind of tools. You have to be proactive, and that
Yeah.
helps us be proactive instead of having a big problem later that you would have to be very aggressive to
Yeah.
fix. You can just do a foliar that goes into some other pass. It's not adding fuel or anything to, like, you're not, your carbon footprint is not higher for that, and
Yeah.
you are preventing.
Totally. So you're working with building healthy vines as opposed to waiting till there's an issue and then having to deal with some like less good organic pesticide essentially or something like that.
Yeah. Same
Yeah.
with foliars for zinc and boron, which I think it's general for conventional farming too, but like just having that extra fruit set strength helps.
Mm, totally. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Great. Thank you. I mean, we're 2 minutes from the end. I overrun there a bit, sorry. But so great to hear. And yeah, just really, as I said at the beginning, so impressed with all that's being you're making happen at Enterprise, you and the team. It's really cool. And thank you to everyone who's attended. And just to say, we'll send a follow-up email next week, probably, with a video of the recording and links to where you can find out more about Mireia and what you're doing at Enterprise. And oh, yeah, you can also, a lot of what we talked about today actually is included in our Regenerative Viticulture Simplified, which is a new course. It's a 7-day kind of deep dive in what it means to take a regenerative approach and what we've learned working with many different viticulturalists. So yeah, it's a I think it's a fun little course, an email every day for 7 days, and yeah, you'll learn more about all the things we've talked about today, really. Um, so head to our website, vines.vitacycle.com, and you can sign up there. And to see previous episodes in the series and access amazing practical insights from so many different people. Well, not so, but many great people. I think there's about 12 of them now. You can head to our website where you'll find the Regenerative Viticulture Hub and tune into previous episodes there. So thank you so much, Mireia. It's
Thank
such a
you for
pleasure.
having me. It was great.
And look forward to more conversations and maybe updates on what the metrics are as you learn more.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank
It was
you.
really great to be invited, and I appreciate it.
Mm, fabulous.